So I am a person that's in long-term recovery. Growing up, I always felt like there was just something missing. Like I had this huge hole, and I was constantly trying to fill it with different things. Food, relationships, alcohol, drugs. And I also remember in high school just thinking that it was normal for me to be out drinking and doing drugs all weekend. I thought that that was what everybody did, and that quickly, led to major issues in my life, being arrested. The first time I got in trouble with drinking with the police was when I was 16 years old. And it didn't stop there. I got in trouble again when I was 18 and 21. And when I was 21, I got in a DUI and they ended up having to go to jail.
I'm Tony. I'm Shannon's mom.
I'm Ken. I'm Shannon's dad.
We struggled as parents, from the time Shannon was a teenager, getting into trouble with, alcohol and drugs and police. And, it was really hard. She was, so beautiful and so talented. And it was really hard for us to understand her making those types of choices.
We go through life, I do anyway, I fix things, and
Yep.
It's easy to fix things. Refrigerator breaks, whatever, you fix it, but when you see your daughter struggling and not know how to fix it is very, very difficult. She was struggling for answers and we didn't have answers. I don't know, we just live life, and thankfully we realized that we can't go on this way. The way it affected us was tremendous. I mean, it's just, you go through day to day wondering what's going to happen. Having to turn our backs on a child is just, we thought we were the only one going through it. Nobody else around us, at our age especially, not going, who do we turn to? We don't know who to turn to,
And so I lost my license, and I was going to cosmetology school at the time, and so my dad had to drive me to school. And I remember telling him I can't stop drinking, and I didn't know, what was wrong with me. And I remember having a conversation with him about, well, Shannon, just stop, because to them it was this super simple, cut and dry thing. Okay, well, if you want to stop drinking, just stop. But I'm an alcoholic, and so it just doesn't work that way. I didn't drink all week, and that Friday, me and my mom had a glass of wine. And that glass of wine turned into me blacking out for 5 days. And I remember I woke up, and I called my mom, and I told her I needed help. And so she drove me to a detox facility, and that was the first time a doctor sat me down and looked at me and told me that I was an alcoholic. And I started doing an outpatient program and going to AA, and my life got better. And so stuff started to get better, and then I stopped going to meetings. And, and I was a dry drunk for a really long time. And I started dating a guy that I was dating previous to me getting sober that time, and I ended up getting pregnant, and I got hit by a semi on I-25 and lost the baby, and I started using after that. I didn't pick up drinking again, but because of the accident, so I was getting prescription after prescription of Percocet, and I started abusing them. And I had my daughter when I was 21, and I think I realized, I remember my dad telling me that's what I needed. I needed somebody who was gonna love me and I could love them, and looking back at it, I think that just shows how apparently big that hole was, that my family was even trying to fill that for me. And then I started doctor shopping, so I go to ER after ER and see what doctor would write me what prescription. And all of a sudden the pills weren't working anymore, and I started using heroin. And that was a very quick downhill spiral. It was 9 months of my life, and towards the end, I was so miserable. I even at one point, I think it was probably about 6 months before I went to treatment, I kind of knew that I was either going to die or I was going to kill myself. And my parents were already taking care of my child, so I didn't want them to have issues once I died of getting custody of her and being able to take care of her. At the time, I wanted to sign over partial custody of her to them. And I was just so far gone in my addiction. When we were supposed to go to court, I didn't even show up, so they took all custody away from me. But I kind of knew that that was going to happen, and I knew that was the best thing for her, because I was in and out of living in hotels and other people's houses at that point. I had definitely hit like a major rock bottom.
She just kept wanting to come back, and we said, no, you cannot come back. We did, actually, because she was living in the basement and her stuff was here. Although she wasn't really living here, she was always back and forth. We did evict her, and, we did quit picking her up and quit giving her money, and we never quit loving her, but we had to do something for us to survive, for her to survive, and for Brooklyn to be safe.
I never wanted to hurt my family. I never wanted to hurt my child. Like, I was just hurting so bad and trying to find a solution for like my pain. I think it was a couple of weeks after that, I called my dad and told my dad that, I wanted to kill myself, and and that's why I didn't show up to the court. And he was like, I've been waiting for a call that you're either in jail or you're dead. And so it was 3 days after Christmas. I was driving from Fort Collins down to Colorado Springs, and I was going to meet my drug dealer in Denver. I was trying to do the rest of the heroin that I had before I went to go meet my drug dealer while driving on I-25, and a cop stopped me because he thought I was texting and driving. That day, that cop changed my life. So I ended up getting arrested because I had a warrant out for my arrest. And he took me to jail in downtown Denver. And I was sitting in jail, and a young girl, she was 18, walked in. And I was talking to this 18-year-old girl, and she had gotten arrested for stealing DVDs at a grocery store. And she had heroin on her when she got arrested. And I just remember like looking at her and thinking like, oh my gosh, you poor little thing. Like, this is horrible. You're 18, you have this drug felony. Something just hit me at that moment that's how everybody looked at me. Like, oh my God, you poor little thing. Like, you just can't get your life together. I didn't want to live that life anymore. I didn't want to be in jail. I didn't want to disappoint my family. Like, there were so many things that just came crashing down that day. And that's when one of the ER, I think it was actually an EMT that drove me to Centennial Peaks. Like, so I've been in detox like multiple times and like don't remember anything that happens, but I remember being there, and I remember like it's just so ingrained in my mind. And they helped me get stuff together to go to treatment. And at this point, my parents were completely done with me. They wouldn't come to visitation. And I don't blame them. I think my mom dropped me off clothes at one point. They dropped my car off in the parking lot at Centennial Peaks with my debit card and I think $20 cash, so I could put gas into the car to get up to treatment. And I think that was like another really big like eye-opening experience. Like, what was different about Centennial Peaks was I think being treated like I was a human being. And I wasn't just like this problem. I remember getting to meet with the doctor every single day and him sitting down with me and talking to me, not talking at me, but talking with me about my treatment plan and what I wanted to have happen and, different options. And I think that was really important too. And I remember too, it wasn't in like an office, it was in a group room. Like he sat across the table from me, and it wasn't like a doctor-patient thing. It was more of like, I'm here to help you, you know, and letting me participate in that instead of being like, this is what you need to do and this is where we're sending you, or, you know, it was more of like me being able to participate in it, which I remember made, you know, like a huge impact.
You know, I was a helicopter parent, and every time something happened, I would scoop her up and save her. We always had different days that, you know, I'd be really strong or he'd be strong, or you love your kids, but at some point your kids have to make the decision to help themselves. And that really understanding that nothing that you did has, you know, made your kid turn out the way they turn out.
I 100% believe that if my parents didn't stop enabling me and didn't like cut off contact and, you know, put these boundaries into place, I would have died. They were loving me to death. I think the best help that they gave me was by putting up boundaries and telling me that, you know, they weren't okay with this stuff anymore. And, you know, my mom, you know, telling me I was dead to her. You know, I was so angry, you know, at the time when all of that stuff happened. But looking back at it, I mean, that's really what, you know, forced me to, you know, start making changes in my life. No, it's not that.
Okay, do your other little.
Do your voice that makes Papa laugh.
Yeah. Do it again. Come on.
I'm Shannon, and I am Centennial Peaks.